Welcome to the Unearthed Man Podcast, the journey of becoming a conscious man. Hey all, Stephen here, and welcome to episode 54 of the Unearthed Man Podcast. As you may have picked up from the season 3 introduction, I'm now changing up the way I acknowledge the traditional landowners of this unceded land to make it more authentic and heart-driven. So, just on that point, recently I was out surfing with my daughter and her friend at my local beach. I finally caught a wave that took me all the way into the shallows. As there was submerged rocks where we were surfing, I looked down in the water to ensure it was clear when I noticed a baby stingray swimming near the shoreline. I jumped off my board, and as my daughter was close by, I called her over, and we spent a few minutes just admiring this beautiful sea creature. My thinking then turned to what it must have been like at this beach pre-colonisation, and how the local First Nations peoples would have been actively hunting in this area for food for their families and taking only what they needed due to how they were connected with the land. Most likely, if they speared a stingray along with eating the meat, they would have used the barb for a fishing spear, making sure that they actually used every part of the animal. And this is how they treated the land and ensured everything was used to its fullest potential. This is something that we can learn from how we operate on this land. This approach was driven by the elders that I now pay respect to, past, present, and emerging. Now, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, then certainly welcome aboard. If you're one of my regular listeners, then welcome back. It's great to be back into season 3, and I really appreciate your ongoing support. Now, a few things to run through before we kick off with today's guest. First up, we now have an active Unearthed Man community made up of men who are willing to support and be supported by other men. If you're a man or know of a man who is seeking his tribe or his community, then please use the link in the show notes below to sign up. Alternatively, you can send me a message via any of the social media channels. Secondly, it'd be great if you could subscribe to the podcast via your preferred app and also leave a review. The quickest way to enable the podcast to become more accessible around the world is for it to receive a 5-star review. All the algorithms put it up the top when people are looking for the top podcasts, and we can get this message out to more and more people and actually help more and more men go on their journey. And finally, I'm now taking expressions of interest for my next 8-week men's empowerment program. If you have that deep inner feeling that there must be more to life than this, or if you're constantly feeling irritated, frustrated, and have lost track of who you are, then maybe this is the program for you. So just to let you be aware, I'm only taking 10 men into each 8-week program this year. Therefore, if you are interested, then also click the link below to join the waitlist. Okay, on to today's episode. I had the pleasure of being a guest twice on his podcast called Duel the Day, where he is a co-host. We felt like we could have chatted for hours on both episodes. He's a former collegiate athlete with certifications in life coaching, NLP, and permaculture design. Given he welcomed me twice onto his podcast, it is with great pleasure that I get to return the favor. Welcome to the Unearthed Man Podcast, Nico McSweeney. Hey, Nico, how you doing?
Doing well, Stephen. So happy to be on and to speak with you again. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, look, it was so awesome that, we connected out through Podmatch, and, I came on once and then you guys, hey, come on back again. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And yes, your co-host, Tyler, is definitely slated to come onto the podcast as well. And it's really cool because I know you guys do an awesome job, and the way you co-host together is just fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I know he's excited to come on as well, and I appreciate your feedback on the hosting style, because everyone does do their podcast differently, and it is weird because him and I aren't sitting in the exact same room. So I'm glad that everything flowed smoothly for you when you came on.
No, it's true. Although on the first episode, I think I was one of the first guests where they actually were able to coordinate their Duel the Day t-shirts. So that was a pretty awesome experience. So yeah, I felt honored that they at least got that coordinated. And I think it was so funny. Yeah, it was without communication. So it was awesome. So Nico, let's get into, so the podcast for myself is about men and their journey and where they've been through life. Now, we touched on some things, when I was a guest on yours, and I think one of the topics we talked about was vulnerability and so forth. But so let's rewind a bit and let's talk about Nico, your journey, and what life looked like for you growing up, and maybe where you're at now.
Absolutely. I love looking back and telling this story. And I think all of our personal stories are are really interesting, and they show us how we've evolved over time. So for me, I was born and raised in Texas. My mom is from South America and my dad is from New York State. So
Okay.
a pretty random pairing there. And I spent my first 15 years in Texas. Then we moved to Tennessee when I was 20, freshman year of high school. Like
Okay.
time is messing with me right now. And while I was in Texas, I played sports. I played soccer and picked up football in middle school. And kind of as you touched on with that intro, I played football from middle school all the way into first semester of college. And I had one of the things that happened during all of that time was my weight transformation. I don't know if I ever touched on that in whenever you came on, but I mentioned it on my podcast before that when I was a senior in high school, I weighed about 290, give or take. Was an offensive lineman. And today I'm about 190, give or take. So I've lost 100 pounds. And it was a slow journey.
Yeah.
We talked about everyone's journey and where they're at and the journey that they're going to be on. That was a journey in and of itself. So that's kind of one of the highlights, I think, personally for me. There's tons of other stuff that I'm proud of, but that's one thing that's happened. That's pretty big for me. Kind of did the job search thing, hunted after college, and I really didn't find what I was looking for in the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I've gotten certifications in life coaching and now in permaculture. And I envision a different type of future for myself where I'm helping my community, but also doing things that I enjoy with permaculture and with growing techniques and coaching and things like that. So I don't know, like I feel like I've done a lot of random different things.
Yep.
But because of the fact that I tried so many different things that I truly enjoyed, I think I know where I'm headed going forward. And that's the fun part.
Oh, awesome. So I just want to double back. So we have a international audience, and football means many things based on where it is. So
American football.
American
yes.
football, or other people might know it as gridiron as well, or different things. So American football and soccer in Australia and America is what all the Europeans will call football, and what we call football in Australia is Australian rules football. So so that's the clarity. And yes, and Nico being in the US will talk in pounds. So I think
that's right.
290 pounds on a 2.2.
So it's like 48 kilos or 46 kilos, something like that.
You would have lost. Yeah, correct.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's a phenomenal effort. Amazing effort.
I should have turned on my Colombian brain, because I do say football whenever I'm with my family, and I say the right words. I just I'm used to the American way, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's quite fine. I'm happy. So I do want to double back. I know, and thanks for sort of that journey of where you went through.
Summary.
And that's really cool. So I know at one point on the podcast that we did chat about, and is one I want to talk to your journey with using Nico, because of that. How people would talk through is, I know I talked about, and people have noticed now that I've introduced Stephen, not Milvo, and I spoke into that on the beginner. But let's go back. I mean, you talked about weight, right? And so in some aspects, when you're, if you're in college and doing college football, then it's actually right, like being a lineman, you need weight, right? And sort of thing. But there's some challenges sometimes to go with that around image or personal image or self-view and everything else. So was there anything that sat with you in relation to sort of being a guy that was 290 pounds, or at that point in time, you were actually trying to get up to a high weight and everything was still, you were comfortable in that space?
It's a great question. To be honest, I think it was a combination of both. So I purposefully put on a lot of weight. Between my junior and senior year, my junior year, I was about 225. And that summer I put on 40 pounds. So 18 to 20 kilos, give or take. And I did that on purpose. I was eating more, lifting more. And I knew that I needed to fill a role in the team. And I loved doing it. So that was the easy part. I also at the same time felt like, I don't know, like I was always like in the corner. I was never a popular kid or anything like that. I I had a lot of friends, but they were not all in the same friend group. Like I knew everyone. So, and I honestly don't know if that had anything to do with my weight, but it felt like it. The obviously could have been the way that I communicated with people or what I taught, how I talk with them. There, all sorts of stuff could happen, but being bigger, it didn't feel good to me in the social scheme of things. Like physically, I was fine because I was strong and I could carry that weight. But socially, it's definitely weird. I felt conscious of the clothes that I had on and how tightly they fit, or what sizes I was buying in comparison to everybody else. Like it's all stuff that I felt. So, but it was a combination for me. So I'm happy that I was able to put on the weight on purpose and also lose it on purpose. I think it's a much different scenario for some people whenever they put on that weight accidentally. Like they didn't mean to gain, 80 or 100 pounds, but it happened. So, that's what happened for me.
Okay. So do you mind if I explore that a little bit more? Because, we talked about that there's two elements that I'd like to chat about. One is, as you said, you knew a lot of people and you were probably friends with a lot of people, but not maybe deeply connected to any specific group. And it's interesting because that's something I've reflected back on many, many times. And it's even like where I'm at now. I know lots of people, like pick any social media channel or chatting out, and like I can go places and have a crowd of 80,000 people and bump into someone I know. And that's really crazy, right?
Yeah.
But am I deeply, deeply connected to that small social group? And my view goes to, I think that's not an isolated thing, but people feel bad about that. I think there's this viewpoint that we have to have this really closely connected social group. And the question is it actually okay to actually just generally be known and friends with a lot of people? And is that something we should be more accepting of?
It's a great question as well. And the first thing that comes to mind is something that Brene Brown says. And she says, when you compare, you disappear. And I think when that comes to wanting a lot of close social connections, I don't think that works. It doesn't help us when we compare to other people and see, oh man, this person has 20, 30, 40 people that they could call up at 2 a.m. and would come get them. I only have 2, or I only have 3. Like, I don't think that helps for us to do that. What I think is best in that moment is if we are happy with the connections that we have created, if we know that those 2 people or that one person that is your close connection, that is a true connection, and you're okay with that, I think that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. For some of us, we do want more of those connections, and that's something that we can create. But yeah, it's tough when we see images in social media or just out in the world where it seems like people have a lot of those close connections and we want more of it. But I think we shouldn't judge or compare to other people. When it comes to those connections, we should just focus on our happiness.
Yeah. What feels comfortable for us, and that's there.
Yep.
The only question on that is that how much of that potentially are we settling for comfort because we're blocking ourselves off for connection? Like, so how much through our childhood or through what's taken place are we actually slowly build up that bit of a wall into our heart and say, if I'm just generalistic friends with everybody, but I'm not close with anybody, is that because that's my safety zone to actually operate in, because I don't let anyone in any deeper into my life? And so, yeah, just a thought on that.
No, that's a great point. And I'm where I'm coming from is the supposition that people should always be looking to grow, that people need to connect in life. And so if we do feel like we're a person that doesn't have a lot of those close friends, or our number is 0 of close connections, I would urge any person that has that situation to go out and find something or someone to connect to. Local churches, local support groups, whatever it may be, there is always someone out there that is feeling what you're feeling or has felt it before and can connect with you. But I would say for a lot of people, we have some close connections in life, a brother, a cousin, a parent, a friend, whatever it may be. And the amount of connections that we have is perfectly okay with where we're at today in life. Is it where we want to be 5 years from now? Maybe not. But we have those connections that we're happy with in the moment. I think what I was getting at is like, if we're in that moment, we have connections, we plan to have more in the future. We shouldn't make ourselves feel bad by comparing to other people. You know what I mean? And like, like, oh man, I want more, but it's okay. Like, true connection does not happen overnight either. That's something that's going to take time to cultivate. So that's where I'm coming from with that. But that's a good point.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with that. And it was interesting. In December, I hosted a men's event, which we just call Reflection and Commitment. And I just reached out to a whole lot of men that I had in my contacts list. And I asked them the question, hey, you want to jump on and support other men? Not asking them, do they need to be supported, but do you want to come on and support other men who may be finding challenging coming into the holiday period? And 80 of them said, absolutely. I think that's great, with the view that they're there to support other men. And then we got on the call. And it was interesting, the feedback after being on the call going, oh, wow, like I didn't realize someone else felt the same thing I felt. And I didn't realize that maybe I did need the support. And I didn't realize this, which as I alluded to at the start, this is like we've got this community of, 37 active men actually up and running and engaging with each other off the back of that, because, where they're going, oh yeah, like almost that, oh, sure, I'll support everyone else, but are they willing to actually then say, hey, do I need support? And when they got into that call, the dynamics really changed, which was really cool. Interesting. The other, I do want to double back. There is something I do want to still talk about, through your growth in college, but just on this journey of friends, I think the other thing too is your thoughts around what I call is like almost journey connections. There's this potential maybe we feel we have to hold on to that primary school friends, or that, I don't know what you call in the US, but our secondary school, or, your freshmen or your college friends. There's this view about, maybe I have to keep holding on to them at this point in time, but it's acceptable to actually start to create a new group, a new set of friends, because as you grow and evolve, the people that you start to bring into your life are probably more aligned to where you're growing and evolving to, as opposed to where you came from.
Yeah, absolutely. Two phrases come to mind when you're talking about all this. One is your network is directly related to your net worth. So how the people that you surround yourself with, that is going to be closely related to how much money you make, basically, right? Mm-hmm. So that evolves over time. Absolutely. We have different friends in high school than we do later on in life. Some of those friends stay with us. And the second phrase that comes to mind is this: people come into your life for 3 reasons: a moment, a season, or a lifetime. And so, yes, there are some people that you will be friends with for a very, very long time. And there's some friends that you may only have for 3 weeks. And I think the interesting part is, when I see it that way, or when I try and look at it that way, we appreciate all of those friendships. You appreciate every moment instead of the fact that it's over. You're not looking at the negative aspects of that. And so with that, I try and learn from all of the friendships that I have and be appreciative of them. And if I'm able to reconnect with that friend or that whoever that is later on in life, then it's meant to happen. It's meant to be in that moment, and I'll learn from that connection again. So those are the 2 things that come to mind when you talk about that.
I love that. On the second one, I gotta now keep remembering all the points we're going to go back to, because you keep dropping bombshells, and I love it. On the second one, and I'm pretty sure it's in the book, The Celestine Prophecy, and I don't know whether you've read that book or not, but effectively,
I don't think so. No,
it talks into the fact that people come into our lives, and the reason why they come into our lives is they've got a message for us. And so, you know, how you said, like, you've got that moment person, or that, you know, the 3 week person, or the long one, but the season, sorry, the moment person comes in. But interestingly, in the view of the Celestine prophecies, if you don't get the message at that point in time, or if they didn't get the message from you, or you didn't get the message from them, how often have we actually had it so that 3 or 5 years later we bump into that same person? And the viewpoint is that they because we never were open to receiving the message, they'll still keep coming back into your life until this message is being passed on, until the lesson's been learnt, or you've picked up on, this is the path that they said that I should be going down, and they've been sent to help guide you down the path that the universe may want you to head down, as opposed to where you think your ego wants you to take you.
Yep.
So on that one, yeah. So in where you're saying, I'm in complete agreement with that, because it's sort of like, so what I do now is that if someone from my past has popped back up again, and I had this absolutely recently, like I did well, basically I went back to college when I was 30 odd, and I met this lady. Then I bumped into her again probably 8 years ago. And now I've just bumped into, basically she's just messaged me again, and I'm like, okay, what is going on here? Is there something that I still haven't got from her? Is there something that I haven't closed out on? Like, it's just bizarre, right?
Wow,
and so it's like, yeah. So for me, I'm really trying to learn or listen. What's the message I should have got? Back on your previous point, and I love the network equals your net worth. I like that idea, and you sort of talked about maybe the financial side, but I would like to see that also in the view of your network is equivalent to your self-worth.
I would think that that's absolutely a connection. Yes. The tough part that I think could happen with that sometimes is that certain people in certain circles focus on material things too much. And that could affect the way that you see yourself, or that you compare yourself to them. And so that would be my only like asterisk with that. Because absolutely, like if you're around people that have those just different ideas, different perspectives, they're doing something with their life, those are people that are adding to your worth. And so that is going up. But the only thing that could happen again is like if someone's obsessed with Ferraris and you can't afford a Toyota, like you're going to feel bad in that social circle, even if their perspectives are different. So,
well, it's an interesting thing you say on that one. And I think this is where like a Grant Cardone or a Tony Robbins and these guys come into it, is to say, you know, you are the summation of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And so if you want to be successfully on a financial front or a business front or an entrepreneur front, then actually go and find 4 successful entrepreneurs.
Yes.
You may not be there yet, but if you hang out with them, then what actually happens is that all the attributes of them that help them become successful or wealthy or spiritual or a combination of both, you have this ability to be, let's call it, rather than getting caught in the material, like these fully abundant people who have learned how to tap into the universe to actually get the worth coming back out. They're the people to seek. And then that's why I think the self-worth kicks in, because we sometimes feel that we are not worthy to actually reach out and hang out with those people. But that's where you absolutely are. And that's where I think we want to get to. So I love that you brought up those couple of things, because I think they're really solid messages for anyone to start to think about.
Oh yeah. And when it comes to self-worth, that's everyone needs to hear that more than once. Everyone has all the worth that they need. If you think you're not worthy of something, no, all of us are worthy of everything. So don't sell yourself short.
Yeah. So there's a whole thing about, do our conditions create who we are, or do we create our conditions that result in who we are? And so the self-worth comes in. It goes, if I'm not worthy of this, then I'm actually already creating a condition that says I'm not worthy of it. And therefore I'll end up staying within the realm of where I see my worthiness. And so if you can start to work your way through a viewpoint of, no, as you said, we are fully worthy of everything, whether it be financial, spiritual, physical, whatever abundance that you want to bring into your life, and a combination of all,
Yep.
like you can have that great relationship. Yes, there's going to be hard work. We're not saying that everything just comes easy, but
No.
if you want it, you can call it in. But the thing is, you could create the condition that if I'm a victim, I'll always be a victim, and circumstances may create the fact
Absolutely.
that these things keep happening to you, and it's your viewpoint about how you actually see it.
Yep. That's a great point. Very true.
I'm going to now double back to this first point that we spoke on, because I think this is really important to men. And I know this is something that I went through, but I want to ask you on this first is,
sure,
when you were, and let's say, for the sporting reason, you're a larger guy, on the female front, and an attractiveness and going out there and actually having those conversations, how did that work for you in relation to your relationship that came in with, sort of chatting to, as you said, being social or dealing on that front? Because this is a men's podcast, and this is all about, guys go through this because we have as many body images as what females do. But we're not allowed to talk about it. We don't see it because we're meant to be okay with all this sort of shit. But the reality is, nearly every man that I know, doesn't matter how cut they are, has a body image issue. And so, so just be interested on, was there a journey for you through that phase?
So I'm laughing because there's a lot of nuance to my story, and the people that know me are probably just laughing hilariously right now. So, but I will give you all of the details so you can just get a different perspective, because I think what I lived through is just unique. So at the time I was in high school, and so in those years, I was actually really religious. I even wanted to be a priest at one time.
Okay.
A lot has changed since then, but because of that space that I was in, I didn't I don't know, dating wasn't always front of mind. Like, yes, I wanted to, and I did have girlfriends in high school, but it wasn't anything that I was really searching for hardcore. But I did feel that because I was bigger, I was not looked at. And it's part of that is my self-image, because I've had plenty of women look at my pictures from when I was in high school, and even though you were bigger, you were still a good looking guy. And every time I hear that, I'm like, what? Okay, whatever. And the really weird feeling that I get now is that I actually do find women looking at me. And that is the weirdest feeling to me in the world, because to me, I'm the same guy that was 300 pounds, basically.
Yeah.
To me, nothing has changed. I'm still the same person. But yeah, I noticed it. And it was, looking back, I would say a large part of that is on me, just not being comfortable in my own skin at that size. But yeah, it had an effect on me for sure.
Okay. Because relationships don't have to be the sexual side of it either, right? It can just be, I just want to have a girlfriend. I just want to be seen to have a girlfriend. And, and so, and that's why I say it can be an interesting thing for guys. And I know, fit as guys who still have body images, bodybuilders have body images, right? And so this isn't hey, you have to be carrying a bit of weight to have a body image issue. There's a lot of guys that are smashing themselves out in the gym because they'll still look and go, oh my God, of the 6-pack, there's 5 plus a little one. How am I going to get the 6th one up and going? No one's going to like me because that's going to look really weird. And, there's all this stuff that still happens out there. So,
yeah. And a part of that is comparison, right? In high school or in those early social circles, you're, at least at the time, only comparing to people around you. But now with social media, now we're comparing ourselves to the entire world. And just out of, math, it's going to happen. There's probably someone that's better out there than you, or has a 6-pack and you don't. That's just going to happen. But we can't compare ourselves to those people. So yeah, people don't have to be overweight to have that body image. That's going to happen all the time. So
the thing that comes to my mind, which is, I I grew up playing lots of sports, and so, the locker room or the club room comes into it, right? And so at the end of the game, you're hot and you're sweaty and you're stripping off, right? And so,
Yep.
I'm not sure what it was like in the US, like whether they'll just fully open, strip down, away you go, and hop in big open showers, or whether I know there's cubicles everywhere these days, but I know when I was, it was like,
for us it was open.
Yeah, and so
they had those poles in the shower with like 8 heads around it, and you just all that was us. Yep.
Yeah. And so that creates challenges in itself, because you have all different, and when we say sizes, it's not just body sizes, right? There's sizes, penises, and everything, right? And so it becomes the male comparison becomes really large, because it's like, oh my God, I'm inadequate, I'm not this, or type of thing. So it starts to really be quite challenging. Is there anything that popped in with you when you're like, because this again, in the college world, because from a perception point of view, before I get that, like, we get to watch from afar and we get to watch all the movies and everything else, right? And so there's all that, so college stuff is all the jocks and all the sporting guys and all the fit and healthy guys. Like, that's the perception from the outside, right? And there's this whole machoism that sort of takes place. Now, I don't know how much that is in reality or not, you having gone through that. So is there anything in there that, that happens, or you observed, or you could give feedback to other men who may be going through, the sporting lives now?
I don't know. I think there's a lot to unpack there. I feel like if I'm speaking to athletes that are in high school or in college and they want a perspective on college sports and life in general, I would always say do what makes you happy, but realize that playing a college sport is kind of like being a slave in some sort to the university. You are a worker for them. And if you are happy with that process and going through the workouts and showing up every year and you're doing it for the love of the game, then enjoy that, because that is the best time of life, is when you can do that, and go all 4 years or 5 if you get an exemption, do it. But if you get into sports, if you're in high school or in college, or you feel that you're not fully happy playing the sport, or life is pulling you in a different direction, then don't feel tied to the sport. Realize that it's your life, not your sport is not life, and you can go on and do whatever it is that you want. I think there's benefits to doing anything like sports. I mean, I wish I would have taken more biology and chemistry classes to understand that stuff more, right? So for me, my class was football and learning about people and sports and things like that. And some of the stuff that I learned is athletes, especially American football or even rugby players, a lot of like high contact sports, they look like gladiators. And really we're just people. We're huge goofballs basically. And so even though these people seem larger than life when they take the field and when they play the sport, at the end of the day, they are still people. Even the most famous athletes in the entire world, they are simply people. Some have different traits. They get into certain things that we may not do ourselves, or, everyone's different, but they're all people. So, I would say sometimes people put them on too high of a pedestal, but that's pretty much what I learned. Just all a bunch of guys enjoying playing sports. And it's not in college sports, it's not all like super focused athletes, maybe at like the super high levels, but even then there's a lot of slacking off, and people are just naturally good at being athletic and making plays and stuff, so they get away with it.
The pedestal one's a really interesting one, on the basis that in Australia, there's a lot of stuff around cricket, which is, it's sort of funny. People who watch baseball go, I find cricket the most boring game on earth. And people who watch cricket go, I can't watch baseball. I love both of them, right? I'm a cricket baseball fan, because I think there's a lot of nuances in how they both get played out. The Australian cricket, a few years ago, they had a couple of people that got picked up for cheating, right? Trying to put sandpaper on the ball and everything else. And so it was interesting. It was actually a Christmas do, and my brother, started really having an attack at this this guy who's David Warner, who's now a batsman, who's back playing for Australia again, and really went to town on him. And I'm just like, so dude, you've never made a mistake in your life. And he's like, oh yeah, but and so there was this whole thing because of this guy made a mistake in his life, right? Now, whether it was, doesn't matter if it was right or wrong, but all of a sudden, because he's in this social thing and because he's at the highest level of eliteness, there's this expectation that they're not human. And yes, I know they're meant to set standards for us, but here's the good thing about it: that was humanness at its best. And now that, but how the process they went through is vulnerability at its best. Like that shattered those men. And so this is something that they have to live with. But not only that, like the condemnation and the keyboard warrior stuff that goes place. And we do forget that ultimately we've all made some silly mistake. Now, some of the mistakes that that people make, I mean, I'm not here to do the compare, but gee, looking at some going like, no one died from that. It's just a game of cricket, right? And like, nothing really happened at it. Yes, I know that people bet on it, but the reality is if you're out there betting and you're trying to make a lot of money on it, then you've got some other issues that we need to be dealing with anyway, because you've put your whole life into that. So it's interesting that we do that we put people on elite pedestals and then hold them to a higher standard that maybe we would hold our mate down the bar at, or our mate down the street at. Like, thoughts on that? I mean, given that the live coaching, your NLP things, any thoughts around that?
It just, to me, it doesn't make sense. The only reason why I think people have higher expectations of these athletes is because they make more money and because they can do things with their body that a lot of people can't. But that at the end of the day doesn't make them a different type of human being. They're still going to be imperfect beings. They're still going to make mistakes. They're still going to do things that they regret. And so just because we can't do that with our bodies and we don't have tens of millions of dollars or whatever the amount of money is, it doesn't mean that we would be perfect. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't make those same mistakes. So yeah, I think whenever it gets to that level where people are like, they hold too much importance with a team or a game or the outcome of certain things, like, okay, like life is bigger than a sport. And these people are just regular guys that just are good at this. So we shouldn't, worship them. Now, there's a beauty to sport because it is an art form. There's so many amazing things that happen in sport. And that's why I love watching all kinds of different sports. But it definitely shouldn't be this thing where like we expect everyone to be perfect.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Absolutely agree. There's probably a saying across all religions, but I've got a Catholic background, and you're talking about religion earlier, and it just and I think we can mistake out things out of whatever Bible we go with, but the whole thing is, he who has not sinned cast the first stone. It's just, take it away from any religion. It's just a really thing. He who has not made who's never made a mistake, you get to pick up the stone and throw it. And there would be no one picking up stones if he just took it down to the basic level, right? And so, it's a bit about, am I willing to look at my own stuff before I actually externalize and actually make myself feel better? Because, I don't have to look at my own shit if I can actually find always these external people. And it's always the sports stars, or it's always this whole, my football club would have been so much better, or why did they recruit this person or that person? And it's like, well, it's easy to sit in the stands and throw a lot of stuff over the fence, but how much are you looking back in your own life about, where your relationship is, what's your relationship with your kids, what's your relationship at work, what's your relationship with yourself? Like, how about we look at all these sorts of things first, and maybe then if we've got ourselves in a level of purity, which doesn't really happen, let's start being there. Look, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal, right? I've been at the football games. I've abused people. I've had a crack. Like, I sit in front of the television and get really worked up.
I have too. Oh yeah.
My wife leaves the room if my favorite team's on sport, right? So I'm getting better. Yeah. But it's just that constant reminder that let's look internal before we start having a crack externally.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I'm right there with you. I've definitely yelled at the TV a couple times, but win or lose, it's still a game, and just got to keep going.
Exactly. Now I want to double back to a conversation that we had when I was first on your podcast, and we got talking about identities and maybe what we do, and you broached on in that one about and you spoke about earlier with your mum being Colombian and your dad being from New York State. So, and we spoke about you at a young age about, how you call yourself to your friends about Nico, or how confident you were in actually saying, no, this is who I am and this is where I'm from, type of thing. So can we go back and, because I'd love to chat more about that and get into more of that, because I think that was a really nice piece that you were talking to on the other one. So can you maybe give a bit of the context was, I've sort of said I'm moving away from Milvo to use my name, because for me, Milvo was a mask. And so I've actually now said, no, I'm actually Stephen, and this is what I do. And so that got into you talking about, it's Nicholas McSweeney, but then you're saying, hey, my name's Nico, but there's like, how do people pronounce it and everything else? And how much were you just trying to then sit back and go, oh, if that's what you want to do, rather than actually owning the full name? So can we talk into that a bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. The story with that is my legal name is Nicholas, but all my family calls me Nico. And so growing up when I was young, that's all I heard. That's what I respond to. That was normal for me. But when I went into school, you got to think Texas in the mid 90s or something like that. Spanish isn't really something everyone's familiar with. So Nico was just not a usual name, and people had problems pronouncing it, and that was just, I don't know, at the time I guess it was frustrating for me, because I was like, how is this so difficult? Like I'm very confused. And just to make it easier on everybody else and myself, I just went with Nick, because I didn't feel like explaining it to people. And I used Nick all the way through high school and kind of in college. And then after college, when I started working, I realized that when I did that, I took away my uniqueness. I took away my individuality, because that's not my name. That was never a name that was given to me. If anything, it was like an assigned name via the school system. So when I started using Nico more, I did feel like I was coming back to myself in a way. Because Nick was, that's never been me. So
love it. And so, and because I know in all the emails now you send through as Nico, and so and is that again just an alignment back in because of your mum being Colombian and connecting back into that South American sort of element?
Yeah, I have a very special family on my mom's side, a lot of history, and so for me that is an important part of my life. And again, that's just who I am. Like that. I'm trying to think of a better way to describe it rather than saying that's who I am. I think like that's just who I grew up to be. That was my surroundings. That's what created me. I was visiting Colombia. Heck, I've visited Colombia like 30 times. I've been there a lot. And so I spent quite a bit of time there. I've seen my family in Colombia a lot. So I don't know, like, yes, I've lived in the United States, I've educated here, grew up here, but I have a very strong connection to Colombia as well. So I'd say that's a big part of that name for me.
Yeah, and that's and I like that, because I know in Australia, like, we're colonized, right? And yes, we now have a lot of diverse people that come out here, but the more and more diversity we get, one, we're getting further away from the traditional owners and the cultures that have existed here. But two, there's now this expectation of uniformity. And that's like, hey, if you come over here, and I've seen this, like, growing up through 70s, 80s and everything else, it's like, if you come over here, then you need to speak our language and you need to do this and you do this. But by the way, I'm going down to the Vietnamese restaurant because you can make great soup. So I want your food, but I don't want you talking in your language, and I don't want you bringing your culture to the table, and I don't want these sorts of things. But I'm happy to go and consume this, and I think I like the fact that people are more like yourself saying, no, I'm part US, part Colombian. And I love every part of this Colombian culture. And I'm going to be constantly carrying this because this is me. It's in my bloodlines. It's who I am. And I think for me, that's where diversity really is that we got to be willing to accept that and allow people to fully express every part of the culture that sits within their bloodlines. Not, hey, we need to start to try to get this common agreed space that, we're all Australian or we're all American or we're all this, because it just, for me, it just dilutes the power of what people can bring to the table from their uniqueness. As you said, Nico, that's you. Yeah. That's the uniqueness that you bring to the table.
Yeah. When you separate people into groups like that, you end up suppressing individuality and the diversity that we have in the world is what makes it beautiful. Like all of those cultures, all of those different perspectives and what that comes with, and the food, because all of the food's delicious. That's what makes it amazing. I don't like, that's one of the things that I really don't like about the world, because it hasn't just happened in the United States, is slavery. Like how we see people as air quotes lesser beings and stuff. That is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so like anytime that happens, if it's just a racial thing or if it's a cultural thing or whatever it is, that's not going to last. And it's harmful to the people that are living within it, because you'll see over time that diversity is better. And then those people that try to create those boundaries are going to feel regret for doing it. I hate seeing that.
I fully agree. And I'm going to take that to a different thing. And people go, I'm not racist and I'm not this and not this, but treat the person making their coffee at the coffee shop like a piece of shit, or the waitress that's serving their food, right? Who accidentally, does something like spills a drink and treats them like a piece of crap. It's like, you're hierarchying roles here. Like that's just completely inappropriate. Like this is just a human who's actually trying to earn money to probably, and you don't know, they could be working 4 jobs so that their kid can actually get to go to college that they never got to go to do. Like all the stories that people go, you don't see what's happening behind the scenes of this poor person. And I shouldn't use the word poor, right? This person who is just doing everything they can in life to either make themselves feel that they got a better life and they can move forward. And there's all that like, I want my life to be better than my parents' life, and I want that my kids to have a better life now. And we all want this to continue to move forward. One, that's probably driving a lot of consumerism and materialism. So there's some downside of that. But there's this whole thing. So but the racist people, it's still here. Like it's rampant. And you probably see it in the US as well, about people go, I'm not. And you go, well, yeah, probably, maybe.
I think anyone that has to say they're not racist probably has some racial tendencies. And I mean, I don't know. Like I've heard a lot of jokes on this subject. I've heard a lot of different perspectives. I mean, like it just doesn't make sense to me. That's the only way. That's the only thing I can say. Like I don't have to justify anything I've done or anything I said. Because that's it. I just don't, I don't get it. But it is everywhere. And that's the sad part. And it just confuses me, I guess. Like, I don't understand why people just assume they know someone because of the color of their skin or their religion. Like, did they meet all of the people of every race? Like, did they already do that so they know the entire race is bad? Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's bad. How about this? There's bad people everywhere, and they're of all different races. It has nothing to do with that.
That's right. Yeah. And we see that stereotyping, and unfortunately, we said a lot in media about, if you're this color, you're a terrorist. If you're this color, you're just socially brought up wrong. It's like the stereotyping and everything else. I think that's a complete different episode that we would get into and go down there. So I don't want to get too far down into that little hole.
You're good.
I know we're getting towards the end of time. And so I really want to thank you for, being open and being honest. One of the questions that I do ask all the guys at the end that come on is, what's that one message? Like if there's a message that you would put out for men out there to say, hey, here's something you could do, or, what's that key message that men could take away that you really want them to go, oh, that's really cool. I hadn't thought about that. Your thoughts.
I would say a kind of a general big idea here is, we talked about comparison today. I would urge everyone to try and compare themselves less to other people and only focus on your happiness and what it is that you're doing. I'm hopefully speaking to men that are always trying to grow, trying to learn, and trying to better themselves. And if you're doing that and you focus on your happiness and try to compare yourself less to other people, I feel like you can do anything you want in life. And it doesn't matter if you want to be the best army person ever, go out and do it. You are capable of everything, but realize that in comparing to other people, we only put ourselves down and we disappear. So focus on your happiness, grow your happiness, and I think you can achieve everything that you want in life.
Awesome. Love that. Nice way to wrap up. So I appreciate that. Hey, Nico, I know it's probably Saturday night, your time over there. So thank you very much for taking time out of the middle of your weekend to jump on the podcast. Excited to have you as the first guest in season 3. As I said, I loved having a couple of chats with you during the year. So it was awesome to have you on. And I'd like to, again, you dropped some fantastic truth bombs all the way through. I like what you've put in there, and I just really appreciate this chat. So thanks for coming along, and take care, and definitely we'll continue to maintain and be in touch.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was an honor, and I can't wait to do this again in the future. We'll have to reconnect for sure.
I definitely think we will be. There'll be a lot of us going back and forth, that's for sure. So take care, man. Have a great evening, and we'll chat again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Hey all, so that is a wrap for episode 54 of the Unearthed Man Podcast. How great was Nico? And I'm just going to go back to that. Your network, is your net worth, and net worth or self-worth, whatever you want to run with it. I mean, that is a really nice summary. And also just chatting about the fact of this world of comparison. Like, let's stop living in the world of comparison. Let's just start to, there's a little affirmation that I've got, which is today I'm going to be better than I was yesterday. And that's like just me looking at me. It's not I'm going to be better than anyone else yesterday. Today I'm just going to be better than I was yesterday. So it's a really simple thing, and just move yourself forward day by day, and that's the key thing. So as we wrap up, just as a reminder, I'm definitely looking to bring on the next 10 men into the empowerment program. So it's a great 8-week journey. It's only going to be 10 guys, a really nice small group where we can actually help each other grow. So click the link below and jump on the wait list. Otherwise, you can find me on all the social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and definitely reach out. So I'll call that as a wrap. It's great to be back interviewing people again. It's been 14 months since we did the last interview on the Unearthed Man, and I'm so excited for season 3 to be up and running. So for everyone out there, sending you much love, peace and care. That's it for now. Thank you.